Okay, so hey y'all, welcome to this first installment of this beat breakdown, or song breakdown in this case. But we're trying something new here. I'm trying to do a thing where I get a little bit more in detail about my process, because that's what I really want to showcase with Patreon, with YouTube, with whatever. I don't want to just showcase like the music I make, but also like try to create some level of an educational tool. So I pulled up my most recent project, No One Waits, which I did with Tyler from DEATHCAMP. He's a cool dude, and he's a really great rapper and also producer. So half these drums are his, actually, and he resampled what I had. Originally, all I had was this idea. I wanted to take this nocturne that Chopin wrote and turn it into something that's not quite what he had envisioned. And so to do that, I had to do a lot of resampling and like figuring out what works and like what works with trap and what doesn't work with trap. And I came across this. This is something that I've done before. I've done it with Vox Crucifixus, a couple choir pieces, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of fun because it really recontextualizes like super academic music in something that's not normally considered academic, and that makes me happy. This is the sample I started with. So pretty beautiful. There's nothing really like crazy about that. It's a beautiful melodic thing, and it's all piano, so it's relatively easy to sample. It doesn't really get in the way of a lot of stuff. All I did was like create kind of like this radio effect, and have like this really like gritty texture at some points. So like for example, right around here, this texture it's pitch shifted, as well as there's some level of like lo-fi quality to it. And a lot of these samples are just looped, things that I found interesting that could work. Like for example, etc., etc. Little transition bits like this and whatnot, and that's just a cut up sample. But I think Tyler actually did that one. And so it's all from the same source material, and I tried to keep it true to its original sound. I didn't want to change the piano sound too much. Occasionally I would have thrown a filter or something over it just to spice it up and change it up a little bit. I used automation and like pitch shifting and whatnot. But for the most part, it's a lot of just taking that original sample and finding what works with trap drums and what doesn't. And then I also took these little things right here, which is just relayering of those same piano samples, and especially for the intro, I wanted to build up to something. So they're just barely out of phase with each other, like a measure or a beat or something like that. But they come in from like the left and right channels, and it feels like your like sound is literally being stacked on each other. Those I didn't do much with because I really wanted the overall texture instead of necessarily anything very specific. I also resampled this part to be played in harmony with the other part. That goes well with, it has this kind of like, it has this feeling of like movement to it, because it feels like a, and that works well with drums specifically, because it has that sense of tempo, like it's going up, it's going like metronomically. And as far as drums go, all the samples I chose were pretty straightforward, but I played around a lot with like pitching, for example. If you look at the MIDI track, this is something that I like to do a lot, where I take the hi-hat and really play with the way that I'm allowing these fills to pitch out. So for example, if I play this one, you can hear like the subtle falls in pitch and whatnot, and I think that just adds another dimension of clarity to the hi-hat and really allows you to shape your sounds the way you want to. And like the snare, oh wait, that's not the one, the thing that hits on 2 and 4 has a lot of different textures to it, so there's that, but there's also a snare, and they're not always hitting at the same time. I wanted to keep it interesting. And this sound is just a lot of layered pitch material. So it's just one big hit on 2 and 4, but it allows it to have this like, or I guess in this case it's every 3, not every 2 and 4, but whatever. You can like recontextualize it in different tempos to be hit on 3 or hit on 2 and 4. Doesn't matter. For this, it's just one sound, but that's pitched in such a way that it feels like this waterfall effect almost. Let's see. You can do this in MIDI with almost any sample. It creates this like longer, like more drawn out sound, and I just put some reverb on it, etc. Always a fun time. And the kicks, I stacked 3 kicks on top of each other because I really wanted them to hit hard. So I isolated, like, I have the kick that I started with, and then I have a kick above that and a kick below that. And then it turns into this really thick, grimy sounding texture. So for this track specifically, I wanted to have like chuggy metal guitars, but with a kick instead of, a typical metal guitar, because that's something I find really interesting in metal. Those breakdowns and stuff like that, I think they really change the feel of a song from like traditional metal versus like newer stuff with breakdowns and whatnot. And I think these kicks is these kicks are what I'm trying to convey with that idea, and that goes on through most of the song. There's also another drum part where Tyler did all of them, and so this is what these sound like. I wanted the kick to hit a little harder, so I ended up separating that from the rest of the track, and it kind of sounds, the snare drum gets in there a little bit, but I just isolated as much low end as I possibly could to give it a little bit more oomph. And then I interplayed his drums with my drums occasionally, especially towards the latter half. It's a lot of his drums and like my textures and whatnot. And then the 808 is this. I wanted something big sounding, so I didn't want anything that necessarily clashed with the kick. Yeah, and that has this like, it feels like they're melded into one instrument, and it's just one big like oomph. I didn't want anything too drastic, and honestly the 808s in the song are like there's relatively few of them, like few parts. I think this little green section is all there is, and I think it's all it needed, to be honest. The kick really takes the most of the low end. And then as far as lyrics go, let's just start with the ad-libs. I just went ahead and do the same thing I do with most ad-libs, which just have like this lo-fi quality to them, just so they can stand out. And there's also a gate on in them because he turned up his headphones pretty high. And for ad-libs, I don't really care too much if it sounds a little bit gated. That's okay with me, because like I want the attacks to be pretty harsh anyways, just so it sticks out of the texture. I like how he had a lot of different versions, but there's just like this delay on them, as well as like this lo-fi quality. Let's see. And then those are all going to one bus with a fuck ton of delay and reverb and whatnot. I tried keeping all the reverb times at the same time, just so they all sound like they're in one space. An easy trick to do that is just like turn the amount of reverb instead of changing how much, like how big your room is. If you want more reverb, just making that like the existing reverb more audible will get you a less muddy mix than if you just like turned like the room size to be huge or whatever. And then this is the chorus. He had multiple tracks, so I panned them, like the main one in the center and then two like left, and I wanted to sound like three people were standing in front of me chanting them to me.
She said I smoke too much, I'm a fiend. Got my thumb bang green since 13.
The main one has a lot more, I'm sorry my computer's crapping out right now, but the main one has a lot more like girth to it, and so I treated that one more like a lead vocal, and the other two I treated it almost like ad-libs, like they're a little bit of like more removed from the texture, but they're also just going through a reverb, and I think that's it. There's some compression to make them sound like one cohesive unit, like using some bus glue, I guess. And then this is the verse, which I have 2 copies of for the intro. The intro, I put like this little low key like girth to it, like this distorted
on me, took control on you.
It's pitched down, but also it's really, really low in nature already because he has a low voice. So this one I use as more like adding a sort of griminess to his vocals, and he wanted it so that it only pops out of the texture at certain points. So I just automated those in. I think I would have liked to blend them a little bit more, but we're already on to the next project, so here we are. But the main verse, I just added, EQ, compression, more EQ. So first, I'm gonna go ahead and reveal all my secrets now. But I remove all the mud. Honestly, this just probably remove a little bit more. Take out all the mud, unnecessary. Like for the most part, you don't need that shit. Compressed it. Really wanted him to have like a crispy, clear attack. So around 6 dBs of reduction, and then I added some more stuff back into his voice. And so I'm realizing now that like I added probably just a hair too much low mid.
Yeah, leg up, yeah, fucked up.
But I really wanted him to have like this clean, crisp sound, and then de-esser and. De-essers are, for those who don't know, they get rid of all this, like the plosives and stuff, or not plosives, the sibilants. And then I went on this plugin and compressed it again and added just a touch more high end to the mix. And then this is all going into a verse bus, which just has the same reverb as the chorus. I think a little bit less though. But Tyler's vocals were recorded well, so I didn't really have to do much with them, which was nice. And that's about it. This whole track is relatively simple. It didn't take much. All I did was like make this beat from the sample, choose some good drums, choose samples that I already liked, that I knew were gonna work well, and then just pitch them around in a way that makes the texture interesting. Because it's not just about exactly which sample you get, but like what you can do with them. Like what can you do to augment these samples? Pitching them is what I like to do, but there's thousands of other things. You can automate them. I also like to use like effect automation with a plugin called shit. Let me look it up. Let me see. This is all going to be unedited, by the way, so this is just going to be one long-ass video. So by the time you're watching this, if you stuck around for here, let's see. I don't know how long we've been recording. Oh, like 15 minutes. This is going to be a long fucker. Or whatever. I can talk about my music for however fucking long I want to. If you want to like tune off, like no. I'm just looking for plugins. This feels like a live stream, a little bit like that, but like I'm by myself and not interacting with anyone, which is fine, I guess. Whatever. Sorry, got totally off track. Shit, I forgot what that plugin is called, but it allows me to divide up it. Shuffle? No, it's not called shuffle. It's called like. Well, basically, it allows you to take whatever effect you want and change it into, like, at the third measure of this loop, apply this effect. Like, it allows you to divide things into time-based things and only apply certain things at certain times, which I think is really cool, and I fuck with it a lot. Unfortunately, I can't shout it out. It's not being made anymore, and it's no longer being supported, but, like, it's still up there. The files. I think it was made by D Blue. Glitch, maybe? Is that what it is? Let's see if this is it. Yeah, it's this. Okay, so you see here how you can automate these 4 measures. So let's say I wanted all of these to have delay on them. There you go. And then you can have nothing on the rest of them. Let's see if I can. I forgot how to make it nothing, but whatever. You get the point. I haven't used this in a bit, but the idea is there. And thank you for watching. This has been like a 15-minute, like, basically live stream of me breaking down this song. So, hope y'all enjoyed it. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.